What's up, guys? Welcome back to another video. This is a reaction that I feel like I just do yearly at this point. The US versus China, military, army weapons, technology comparison. And yeah, I feel like I do these reactions every year at this point, maybe even more than that. But I find them fascinating, which is why I do them. And I guess over time it's changing. In terms of China, I feel like it's getting stronger. The US are also getting stronger, but in terms of the sort of gap in between, I feel like it's getting smaller. But at the same time, I see things where it's like it's maybe overstated with what China are doing and all these things. So we're going to see. I assume this probably isn't 100% accurate, but it gives you an idea of the sort of comparison. And that's pretty much it. Let's check this out. Links also in the description to my Patreon, where you can see reactions that I can't post to YouTube, movies, TV series, sports reactions, all that good stuff. Links are there. Just reacted to the Super Bowl. Links are there for that. And yeah, based off suggestions of what people want me to react to, you can also suggest stuff through the Patreon that obviously I can't react to on YouTube. But yeah, links are there for those interested. And
move over, Russia, because the United States has a new competitor determined to reshape the world in its own image. But as the likelihood of the conflict between China and the US grows, just how do the two...
They've changed their editing, their graphics. They turn them into country balls. Okay. Oh, they're balls now. Oh, right. Okay, they've changed it.
Military technologies compare, and why are America warning that China's less advanced military technology might actually be an advantage. In 2023, President Joe Biden delivered a crippling blow to the Chinese economy when he introduced legislation that would ban U.S. companies from cooperating with Chinese counterparts in the development or export of advanced computer microchips. The CHIPS and Science Law was aimed at boosting American production of semiconductors, seen as critical to global competition in the 21st century, and included over $50 billion in subsidies to kickstart American innovation and production. But the part of the law that put in place prohibitions on U.S. companies from working with Chinese companies was merely an extension of a 2022 law that forbade the export of microchips made with U.S. equipment to Chinese companies. Technology has become a key area of global competition, and microchips are the key to technologies ranging from clean energy to artificial intelligence and advanced weapon systems. Known as the chip war, it's impacted nations around the world. In the wake of Russia's invasion of Ukraine, the EU and the United States became significantly concerned over the resiliency of the microchip trade around the world. The United States used to lead the world in semiconductor manufacturing and development, but during the height of globalization, those capabilities were offshored to East Asian companies, where production and innovation costs were much cheaper. For years, the US reaped the economic benefit. But with the rise of China, America and the European Union have both been left extremely vulnerable to blockade or interruption of their microchip supply. With its ability to threaten supply routes in East Asia and Taiwan itself, where the vast majority of the world's advanced chips are manufactured and developed, bringing back the ability to fabricate microchips to friendly shores became more important than ever. But equally important was the need to slow down the pace of Chinese technological development. The post-Cold War peace dividend is officially over, and the age of great power competition has now returned. China wishes to reshape the world in its authoritarian image in order to ensure the survival of the Chinese Communist Party, and to upend the current liberal rules-based order and install one much more favorable to itself. But first, we want to thank the sponsor of today's video.
Go on, secure that bag, make that money. Make that money. Oh, maybe they're not all country balls then. There we go.
And alarmed many in the West over fears of what it might do. Logical subscription to go to InVideo AI and start making your own content today. China's technological ascension has been swift and alarmed many in the West over fears of what it might do with an ever-modernizing military. Thus, the EU and the US have teamed up to both try to contain Chinese development and increase their own resiliency in case of a global conflict. The EU has invested 43 billion euros into its own CHIPS Act and aims to double its market share of the global semiconductor industry from 10% to 20% by 2030. China has invested around $150 billion into its own semiconductor industry as part of an estimated $1.4 trillion budget aimed at developing new technologies. However, China's industry produces largely far less advanced chips for use in common consumer electronics, and the nation lacks the expertise and manufacturing capability to produce the most advanced chips, such as Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing Company's 3-nanometer chip. This goes in line with China's troubles with developing advanced manufacturing equipment, such as 6-axis milling machines critical for fabricating cutting-edge aircraft and other parts for high-tech assets. Currently, foreign companies utilize their own 6-axis machines, with Chinese counterparts closely supervising the process, attempting to glean some technical know-how. But more and more of these companies are being forced to move their operations out of the country over concerns of industrial espionage and home nation regulations aimed at keeping advanced technology out of the CCP's hands. President Biden's new microchip regulation has caused significant issues for Chinese companies. It forbids American companies from selling either chips or the machines to manufacture them to China, and American engineers or scientists from working with Chinese companies. Further, companies are now required to obtain special licenses to export advanced chips for use in advanced computing or developing AI systems, all with the goal of introducing strict government oversight and preventing China's acquisition of advanced American chips. The regulation also applies to any foreign firm that uses any American tools or software in the development or production of microchips, which includes a significant number of foreign manufacturers. The EU has taken a slightly softer approach, but has named China as chief concern for technological theft. As a result, the EU is now introducing export controls on both physical goods and even investments in key technology areas, such as advanced semiconductors, quantum technologies, and artificial intelligence. Suddenly, China has found itself surrounded by a great wall of microchip denial, aimed squarely at crippling its ability to develop advanced artificial intelligence and other technologies which could have military applications.
Jeez.
The United States is widely accepted to maintain the lead in military adoption of AI technology, but some fear that China is closing the gap. For the CCP, AI is believed to be critical and the foundation of all future economic and military power. In 2017, China's State Council issued the New Generation Artificial Intelligence Development Plan, which states that AI will birth a new era of human achievement, from new industries and products to revolutionizing the way that societies operate. To ensure China becomes a global leader, the nation has invested an unknown amount of money into AI research, though estimates place the low-end figure at tens of billions of dollars. Two Chinese regional governments have made public commitments of 100 billion yuan, or $14.7 billion at the time. The Chinese military believes, and rightfully so, that the future of war is what is increasingly being called intelligentized warfare, marrying artificial intelligence with human operators, but elevating AI to a level where it has increasing autonomy. The United States is already heavily invested in developing key capabilities such as...
With AI, is the US like the sort of the spearhead in terms of like leading the, I guess, in terms of like AI intelligence and improving it and all this sort of stuff? Is the US leading this, or is it places like Japan? I don't even know if Japan necessarily is involved in that, but I just assume places like Japan or like South Korea are probably up there as well. But is it the US that's leading the AI sort of world at the moment? It's probably a mixture of many like countries, but you've got like the US and then in the US you've got certain companies within the US, social websites and all that sort of stuff. I assume they're involved, and all these billionaires would be involved. So I assume it's definitely the US leading, but a lot of other countries very close behind, or maybe join in a similar sort of boat in terms of the knowledge they have. Yeah.
Is artificial intelligence-driven electronic warfare, known as cognitive electronic warfare. Currently in development, CEW aims to equip future electronic warfare assets with AIs capable of learning and adapting on the fly in response to enemy action. An aircraft equipped with a CEW system will be able to adapt its offensive and defensive electronic measures during the course of a mission, and then upload a software patch created during the mission to other aircraft to make them even more effective against the threats that aircraft just faced. These thinking systems won't be truly unshackled AIs, but they will still be smart enough and have enough freedom to write their own code in order to evolve on the fly against enemy threats. How far along is China in developing CEW capabilities of its own? This remains unknown given the extremely opaque nature of Chinese society. Whereas the United States military regularly releases updates on new capabilities it's adopted or is working on as a means to deter conflict, China likes to play its cards close to its chest, either because it's far further behind than anyone has estimated, or because it's created advances it hopes to leverage in surprise against the United States and its allies. One area where China has a massive advantage over the US and EU is in its use of artificial intelligence for domestic surveillance. The nation has not been shy about its capabilities to monitor nearly every square inch of even major cities. And indeed, most Chinese cities have nerve centers from where officials can monitor their citizens in real time. China has touted the benefits of these systems, such as creating adaptable traffic control models, combating crime, and even things as simple as more efficient trash routes for city services. But it doesn't change the fact that the intent of the citywide surveillance system is control, to aid in its efforts to surveil its own citizens.
It's very creepy. I guess there's pros and a lot of cons to this, but it's very creepy that you've got this much watch on people. Again, there's situations where this would be very beneficial, right? Like, very beneficial. But then there's situations where it's just like, okay, this is a bit too much. But don't get me wrong, I feel like the UK is a country that's got a lot of cameras, but I don't think it's anywhere close in terms of the technology that they use for it, and in terms of the numbers of cameras. It's probably not even a comparison.
China has long been developing surveillance AI systems to filter through all the incoming data and immediately alert operators to everything from accidents to unauthorized public gatherings, or simply tracking the location of individuals the Chinese Communist Party considers undesirable. It's not immediately clear that this massive domestic surveillance program is truly translating into advantage in developing military artificial intelligence, but it is possible. Machine learning AIs using deep neural networks rely on having huge quantities of data to train on during the development stage, and the massive Chinese surveillance network can provide that data. But training an AI on domestic surveillance doesn't necessarily translate into creating militarized AI, since military AI would need equally large amounts of data on enemy weapons and sensor systems, things which are simply not in range of Chinese sensors and weapon systems. AI is generally application-specific, as in they do one job and they do it exceedingly well. One known use of advanced American AI is in its AI-enabled analysis of satellite reconnaissance images, with American satellites generating millions of images of Russian and Chinese military installations and forces. Those pictures are turned into training data for an AI system. However, while that makes an AI excellent at analyzing even the most minute details of an image, which might hint at real-world developments on the ground, it's generally useless for adopting AI to perform any other tasks. So while China definitely has an advantage in facial recognition technology and domestic surveillance applications of AI, these advantages simply don't translate into a military application. Thus, most analysts are confident that when it comes to militarized applications, China has no advantage over the United States, and may in fact be at a disadvantage, given its inability to gather good data on ongoing conflicts, which could be used as training data for military applications. The United States, by comparison, enjoys the support of a global system of allies and the use of American recon and intelligence gathering platforms in places with ongoing conflicts, such as Ukraine. It's widely believed, for example, that American F-35s have flown inside of Ukraine airspace for the purpose of intelligence gathering, and that American intelligence operatives have long been operating within Ukraine and possibly even near the front lines themselves. It's not outside of the realm of possibility that some Western equipment donated to Ukraine has been used to collect real-world battlefield data, from which training models for militarized AI can be built. Meanwhile, the likelihood of Russia allowing China to do the same is slim, given that the relationship between the two nations is fraught with tension. Further, we know
What? Russia and
AI can be
Ukraine?
built.
Russia and China? I thought they were boys.
Meanwhile, the likelihood of Russia allowing China to do the same is slim, given that the relationship between the two nations is fraught with tension. Further, we know for a fact that American intelligence drones and aircraft do operate adjacent to Ukrainian airspace, with their powerful sensors able to cover nearly the entire nation and scoop up vast amounts of electronic intelligence. If the rumors of the F-35 operating inside of Ukraine are true, and there's a strong indication that they are, then even more and better quality data could be gathered even from well behind the front lines, where the F-35s are believed to have been flying. While China is unlikely to adapt its domestic surveillance AI for military applications, it still gives it one decisive advantage over the US. Chinese tech companies work hand in hand with the Chinese Communist Party. On top of this, CCP regularly places government representatives on the board of directors of companies that it sees as important for national defense. This means that the Chinese tech sector enjoys a very strong partnership and collaboration with the Chinese intelligence apparatus, a capability that the US simply does not have. American culture simply doesn't accept the use of technology as a mass surveillance apparatus the same way that Chinese culture does, meaning American companies' collaboration with America's national defense institutions is greatly limited. For its part, the US government, along with American society, have chosen not to pursue unethical applications of AI technology the same way
Well, that's good
that the Chinese government has.
to say.
This is good news
see.
for fans of democracy, but bad news when it comes to developing militarized AI systems of the future. And this is of
Alright.
increasing concern because US intelligence strongly believes that China is aggressively pursuing autonomous AI lethal weapons. It can be difficult to ascertain Chinese capabilities as the nation remains incredibly secretive about any new developments until they can either be unveiled for deterrence purposes or to export to the global arms market. Despite this, US intelligence is confident that China has made autonomous weapon systems a high priority. In 2018, Zheng Yi, a senior executive at Norinco, China's third largest defense company, stated that in the battlefield of the future there would be no humans fighting. He further stated that by 2025, he believed that lethal autonomous drones would become commonplace. Most worryingly, transcripts of his speech after the fact were scrubbed of any mention of lethal autonomous weapons, indicating that the Chinese government did not want this information to be public. China's already selling combat drones with some limited autonomous capabilities on the global arms market. Currently, as seen in Ukraine, the weakest link in drone warfare is the need for a constant communication signal back to the operator. This has led to Ukraine losing an estimated 10,000 drones a month,
Oh my
most of them
days.
to Russian electronic warfare. However, some Chinese drones boast of autonomous capabilities that can kick in if a communications link is severed, or simply activate to operate the drone without direct supervision. This includes limited precision strike capability, likely using image recognition of known target vehicles or buildings and autonomous reconnaissance within a set target area. The US is also developing AI with similar capabilities and is believed to be ahead of China, at least for the moment. Recently, the US Navy has even tested a fleet of 3 autonomous large surface warfare ships, which make up what is called the Ghost Fleet. In the near future, the Navy might see as many as 100 unmanned and fully autonomous ships joining its manned vessels, performing duties from fleet air defense to minesweeping and anti-submarine warfare. Eventually, though, the Navy believes that unmanned ships will outnumber manned ships in the fleet 3-1. And we're talking large ships, not a swarm of smaller drones, which the US is already adopting into its military architecture. Known as the Replicator Initiative, announced early in the year of 2023, the goal of the project is for the US Armed Forces to adopt, quote, thousands of armed drones within a matter of 2 years. This isn't a lofty future capabilities program. It's a program using lessons learned in Ukraine to make the US military a drone army today. But where US autonomous capabilities are likely far surpassing China's is in the area of aerial combat, known as collaborative combat capability. The US Air Force is developing AI tech, which will power a fleet of small expendable drones that will fly alongside manned aircraft. These drones will make up the backbone of future air power and fly alongside the NGAD, or the 6th generation air superiority fighter, currently slated to be in service as early as 2030. Each NGAD will serve as a mothership to as many as 5 drones, who will cruise alongside the NGAD and then ahead of it and have the ability to directly engage enemy fighters without supervision
That is crazy. How the hell is this happening, man? We are so advanced at this point. This is wild.
from the mothership.
I guess it said it's not happening now or 2030, but god damn.
Other nations are adopting collaborative combat capabilities, but the US seems to have a solid lead. It's been developing dogfighting AIs since the late 2010s, when DARPA held a competition that pitted various AIs against each other in a dogfighting trial. The winning AI then faced a real human pilot and soundly defeated him in every matchup.
Jeez.
China performed a similar feat, using an AI-powered drone to take on another drone flown by a human pilot. However, it's not known if the test was less rigorous than the one undertaken by DARPA, as these were not drones with the same characteristics as a modern fighter jet. By comparison, the US Air Force has flown multiple training missions with AIs fully in control of an unmanned F-16, known as Skyborg.
I think I've seen these F-16 drone one. Like they look the same. I guess they're a bit smaller. I can't fully remember. I remember doing a reaction on like drones, and when I initially saw it, I thought, wait, this is a drone. But yeah, man, it's crazy, man.
The development of dogfighting AIs has evolved to the point of installing them in actual fighter aircraft. and then letting those aircraft fly real training missions, apparently to overwhelming success. This likely means that the US is far ahead of China in the capability to directly create drone wingmen for its future 6th-gen fighter. There is the possibility, though, that China could actually be at an advantage over the United States by virtue of being less technologically capable. While the US has an overwhelming advantage in the foundations and institutions of research into AI and other technological sectors, this doesn't necessarily mean that it has an advantage when it comes to adopting new technologies. It's known as leapfrog development, and it occurs when a country skips an entire development stage simply because it's better primed to adopt a future
That's a fair point.
development than
And this is something that I feel like China would definitely do.
when deeply entrenched in a current level of development. The best example of this is the adoption of paperless and AI-driven payment networks using facial recognition in China, which sprung up as a result of the nation having no easy process for conducting credit checks, amongst other economic capabilities enjoyed in the West for decades. A similar development is the wide adoption of cellular phones in underdeveloped nations that had little prior landline infrastructure. In both cases, the need for convenience existed, and thus it was easier to adopt new technology that more developed nations adopted slower due to their pre-existing infrastructure. China is not blind to how the adoption of AI could lead to a leapfrog capability over the US, and it has everything to do with all the advantages the US enjoys today. The United States enjoys an overwhelming advantage in everything from stealth technology to aircraft carriers and precision strike weapons. But all of those have created a deeply rooted system of business practices and political interests, which makes it incredibly difficult, if not impossible, to adopt any new disruptive technology. China, on the other hand, has no such culture and is thus much freer to adopt a brand new disruptive tech than the US. It's similar to warnings within the US Navy itself in the years prior to World War II that the battleship was becoming obsolete and that the future was the aircraft carrier. Deeply entrenched dogmatic beliefs in the battleship, skepticism of developing airplane technology, and a political and business culture built around the battleships, however, made it nearly impossible for the aircraft carrier's proponents to be heard. Thus, by the start of World War II, the aircraft carrier was still seen as a support weapon rather than the primary strike weapon of the US Navy. Had the aircraft carrier been adopted earlier as the primary strike weapon, World War II would have likely been much different and far shorter. Likewise, established US technology threatens to choke off the adoption of new disruptive technologies. The Chinese firmly believe that the United States spends entirely too much time and money maintaining and upgrading mature weapon systems, limiting how much it can invest in developing and adopting new disruptive technologies. By comparison, the Chinese military acknowledges that much of its equipment is obsolete and in need of replacement, placing it in the perfect position to simply adopt new disruptive tech rather than investing in legacy systems. In one specific example, China's investing heavily in developing small, cheap, autonomous submarines that can directly threaten US aircraft carriers. While China does currently have a submarine fleet, most of it is far from modern and aging out of service anyway. This opens up the door for China to simply refuse to invest in a legacy fleet and instead build a new one made up of expendable drones that can overwhelm.
So what I'm getting here is like the US is trying to be strong in all areas, right? Just strong in all areas, and I feel like China maybe want to be strong, very, very strong in a specific area, but then all the other areas, they're pretty, whether it's average, maybe in the global scheme still relatively good, but average to poor, like depending on what it is. Like the submarine, for example, the submarine fleet that they're talking about, I guess they are very poor, even on a global stage, global level. But yeah, they want to just be very strong in a few specific areas and stuff like that, which is, I guess, an interesting approach. I don't know how it's going to go, but it shows the approaches that are very different.
U.S. defenses. Meanwhile, the United States is deeply invested politically and economically in maintaining its fleet of submarines, which may represent an outdated way of thinking about war. Rather than directly competing with U.S. military power by building Chinese equivalents, China may simply be able to adopt new, more efficient, and cheaper ways of threatening said U.S. military power. But it's not all doom and gloom for the U.S. military, because in recent years there has been a recognition of America's reluctance to invest in new capabilities in favor of legacy systems. The Replicator Initiative represents the most ambitious of these attempts to change America's defense culture, and the program will not end when it succeeds at adding thousands of new combat drones to America's arsenal by 2025. Rather, the Replicator initiative is seen as an ongoing program that'll seek to continuously innovate and adopt rapidly emerging technologies and ensure the U.S. does not suffer the fate of so many previous world powers by becoming rigidly stuck in the past. Now go check out how you...
Well, there we go. Don't know how legit this is, but yeah, Skynet became self-aware on August 29, 2025. In a panic, humans tried to shut down Skynet. What? Has this person smoked before putting his comment? I'm so confused. But there we go. Let me know your thoughts on this, and that's pretty much it. I don't really know what else to say, but yeah, this is a comparison that seems like there's not really much to worry about if you're, I guess, wanting the world to not have two powers competing and one winning. I feel like there's still one power pretty much fully in control, but who knows? I mean, at the end of the day, like you said, China keeps stuff very secretive, but I feel like maybe there's stuff that maybe the US know or other countries know, or yeah, whatever it is. But yeah, that's pretty much it. Until next time, like, subscribe. Peace.